Welcome back to more ReZero. Links in the description for the past videos. We're on our way to Sanctuary, so let's jump back in. Puck isn't showing up? Yeah, I've called to him several times and I can still feel the link from our contract, but has anything like this happened before? Not very often, but there have been a few times where he didn't show up for a few days. This has been hinted at several times, but they are finally talking about it. Puck is MIA. Subaru remembers the last thing that Puck said to him, which was, take care of Amelia. So he at least planned his absence here. The fact that the contract can be felt is something that comes up again. It's kind of a minor point, but both the person and the spirit can feel the contract in some way. So at the very least, they would both know that the other person is alive. Puck being able to go off on his own really isn't that surprising either. In the last arc, in I think it was the web novel, we saw that Puck was able to go to Arlem Village while Amelia was asleep. We also saw that Julius was able to send one of his spirits off with Subaru. So it's not like the spirit has to be attached to the contract holder at all times. Amelia doesn't know what he is doing when he goes off on his own. In the novels, she imagines that he is off saving the world or something, and Subaru says it's like a child imagining what their parent does when they go off to work, and I kind of agree. Anyway, Puck being gone isn't going to be a huge issue as far as fighting goes. Amelia still has contracts with lesser spirits, so she can still fight and use magic and all that, just not as well. And honestly, it's not going to matter that much for this arc. Subaru remembers that Garfield was brought up a few times before this. In the light novel, Rem says that Roswaal was off visiting Garfield during the third arc. And I think that's who he was visiting during the fight in the second arc, too. But now that I think about it, I may be pulling that out of my ass. Yeah, I don't remember if it was ever actually said who he was visiting. Never mind, scratch all of that. The novels talk a little bit about the vow that Frederica made not to talk about Sanctuary. She is only allowed to give a little bit of info about the place. Now, this whole story has a lot of different words that basically just mean promise. Vow, contract, oath, covenant, they're all just different words that mean a promise to do something. Now, this promise can have a reinforcement with magic, and that magic would basically either prevent them from breaking that promise or adding a punishment if they end up breaking the promise. A contract with the spirit would fall into that category. From what I've seen, a vow can have the magic backing, but in most cases, I don't think it does. It's just a normal promise. In Frederica's case, I'm not really sure which one it is, but I do lean towards it just being a normal promise. I mean, there are plenty of reasons for her not to want that information to get out, so I don't really think the magic binding is needed. Amelia, being a spirit user, is big on keeping promises. Whether there's magic involved or not, they are all treated the same. Subaru, on the other hand, is a little more loosey goosey with promises. But they do talk this out, and Subaru finally realizes how much that he fucked up by breaking his promise to her. He apologizes, she forgives him, and it's not something that was needed for the anime, but I do wish they had included it. Okay, last thing. The web novel talks about Amelia's hairstyle. Part of her contract with Puck is that he decides what her hairstyle will be. So since he is gone, she has just been going with the last hairstyle that he picked. I'm pretty sure her hairstyle has changed in the anime, but I'm not about to go try and look for all the times that they did. There is a reason for this condition being in her contract, and it will come back up later. Excuse me, we're in the forest. In the anime, Otto is the one to let them know that they're in the forest. And in the novels, it's Amelia that says something about it. In the light novel, she just looks outside and it's very obvious they're in the forest. But in the web novel, she never looks outside. She just says that she notices they're in a forest because she's a half elf and could feel that they're in a forest, which is fascinating and something that I don't remember ever coming up again. Subaru notices that Amelia is shaking. I'm sorry for worrying you. When I think that we're about to arrive at the sanctuary, a village where only demi-humans live. No, I should apologize. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I guess there might be some more half-elves there, huh? I've never seen any half-elves other than myself. but just maybe in Sanctuary. Considering demi-humans aren't really treated that great to begin with, and most people are worried about Amelia's connection to the witch based purely on how she looks, it would make sense that if there are any more elves, then they would probably be in hiding. The crystal starts to glow. I suddenly have a bad feeling. I'm borrowing this. Subaru grabs the crystal and gets ready to throw it out the window. Before he does, Amelia falls over, unconscious. Amelia! The crystal shines brighter in his hand. The light envelops him. When he is able to open his eyes again, he finds himself in a forest. This does not happen in the web novel. Since the crystal was never given, the teleportation never happens. Amelia just passes out once they go across the barrier. Which makes this whole crystal thing confusing to me. Originally, I thought that the idea was to teleport Amelia into Sanctuary so that she wouldn't go through the barrier, but the anime and the light novel don't really make that into a big deal. She just passes out for a bit as they go through it. So what was the crystal for then? I've got a feeling that we'll learn more as we go. A young girl dressed in white appears nearby. Who are you? Those ears, are you an elf? Without a word, she turns and runs off. No, wait. Subaru tries to chase after her, but loses her. Instead, he finds what looks to be an old abandoned temple. Still not seeing or hearing anyone, he walks inside. Halfway down the hall, he hears a voice. I see, so that's the root of your desire. How very interesting. Before his eyes, the dark corridor shifts into a bright blue sky. He's suddenly standing in a field. Oh, did I startle you? Subaru turns around to see a woman sitting at a table beneath an umbrella. It has been quite a while since I spoke with anyone, so perhaps I was a little too eager. My name is Echidna, or perhaps you would know me better as the Witch of Greed. It is time for the witches. And we already knew that there was going to be multiple witches just based on the fact that they brought up the Witch of Envy, 7 deadly sins, blah, blah, blah. And Amelia was called the Witch of Frost in the novels during the last arc. The multiple witches really aren't a secret, but people don't tend to care about them near as much as they care about the Witch of Envy. So they end up getting overlooked a lot. And part of the reason for that is going to come up here in a bit. The light novel skips over Echidna's introduction. Granted, it's not really needed, but it does feel weird to go from inside the ruins to now here's the Witch of Greed. Now move on with the story. It just feels weirdly skipped over, especially how well we see the anime give her introduction. Subaru also feels more danger coming from her than he did from the whale and Betelgeuse. That tells you how freaked out he is right now. What is this place? When did you move me? Unfortunately, you're mistaken. You weren't physically moved anywhere. You were merely invited to my tea party. A witch's tea party. The light novel says that this is kind of like a dream, and Echidna didn't invite him in, Subaru just kind of invited himself. She convinces him that it's a dream by relating it back to something else that he's experienced. And Subaru doesn't really know what she's talking about, but at the same time he does. Like he feels like he understands, but he doesn't really know what she's referring to. I'm pretty sure that she's talking about the void dreams that he has between deaths every now and then. Subaru doesn't remember those, but how does she know about them? Supposedly she can't see what's going on outside the temple, at least according to her. And I think it has something to do with how the trials work, but we'll see more on that later. Are you going to stand there forever? Why don't you at least sit down before the tea gets cold? Frustrated, Subaru gives in and stomps up to the table, grabs the tea, and downs it. You're awfully brave, gulping down the tea served by a witch. Huh, if you wanted to kill me, I'd be a pile of ash in the next instant. What's in this tea, anyway? It's not bad, but it's not good, either. It's a body fluid of mine. What the hell did you just make me drink? In the light novel, Subaru goes with it being sweat or saliva, and sure, those are the only two options. You truly are a fascinating individual. You're standing right here in front of me as if it's normal. You think you're so pretty that a normal person's eyes would fall out? I'll have you know that my eyes are blessed throughout the day by the prettiest girl alive. So no matter how many times I look at you, I'm not going to think that you're particularly pretty. No, most normal people vomit when they stand before me. Funny, right? There's something funny about that. She doesn't look that gross. Part of me wonders if what she is saying is actually true, but it's more of a reputation kind of thing. People get nervous about who she is, so they end up throwing up when they see her. What is it you want with me? Nothing, really. You came in here of your own accord. If you want to go back, I'll send you back. But are you sure that's what you want? An opportunity to talk to the Witch of Greed is not something that just anyone can earn. Let's remove everything unnecessary from the picture. The table disappears. The ground fades. Even the sky cracks and breaks. All that's left is two people floating in the expansion of space. It's not completely the same, but this does remind me of the Void Dreams with Envy that I mentioned earlier. The funny thing is, the light novel doesn't go this far. She leaves the hill and the chairs so they aren't just floating in the void, even though that she just mentioned it like minutes before. Now, what would you like to ask me? About the Witch of Gluttony, Daphne, who created the beast that defied the will of God to save the world from starvation. About the Witch of Lust, Carmela, who granted emotions to non-human beings in an attempt to fill the world with love. About the Witch of Wrath, Minerva, who struck people to heal them as she lamented the state of her war-torn world. About the Witch of Sloth, Segment, who drove a dragon past the great waterfall just for a chance to rest. About the Witch of Pride, Typhon, who, out of youthful innocence and cruelty, judged criminals one after the other. About the Witch of Greed, Echidna, the embodiment of the thirst for knowledge, who has done things she regrets even in the realm of death, all in the pursuit of knowledge. Or, the Witch of Envy, the one who killed all the other witches and used them as sustenance while she made the whole world her enemy, the most detestable of them all. Here is our introduction to the original witches, and we'll get more info on them later, but I do want to point out how she is describing them. At worst, some of them come off as morally gray, but most of them aren't really considered evil, which is very different from how I would imagine the world views the witches. Most of the time, witches are considered evil. Also, I just finished with the 8th arc, and let me say, Segment being able to push back a dragon is a fucking feat. I cannot overstate how much of an achievement that is. It was actually multiple dragons that she killed, according to the light novel. And this world is also flat, so drove a dragon past the Great Waterfall means that she threw a dragon off the side of the planet. The field snaps back. Oh, darn. It looks like I've frightened you too much. Such is the nature of the witch. It is quite bothersome. Pain suddenly shoots through Subaru. Oh, that took less time than I thought. People who are compatible really do adapt quickly. That line will be very important for later. And by later, I mean in like a minute. That tea you drank, I used the Envy Witch factor on it to strengthen your resistance. Now you and I can talk at leisure. Wait, she used the Envy Witch factor? Was this a fuck up by the anime or something? In the light novel, Echidna says your witch factor. I mean, it is a very popular theory that Subaru has the Envy witch factor, but that hasn't been confirmed yet, especially not at this point in the story. So I think this was probably just a mistranslation by the sub, or maybe the anime itself just completely fucked up. I don't know, my Japanese isn't that good. What did you do to my body? I didn't make you drink that tea with the intention of doing anything bad. In fact, I find your existence quite desirable. I'm a bit embarrassed, really. In these past few days, you killed someone who possessed the sloth witch factor, correct? When he died, the witch factor chose you as its new dwelling. That's also why you were able to enter the graveyard unharmed. 1. How does she know that? I think it's related back to how the trial works, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll talk about it more once we get to that point. 2. Subaru has a witch factor. And I think the fact that he didn't even realize that he had it kind of goes back to Echidna's previous statement that those who are compatible adapt quickly. Compatibility with the witch factor does come up often with a lot of theories, and I am on the fence. There is reason to believe that compatibility does play a part in how the witch factor affects the person that it is attached to, but a lot of theories that I've seen kind of go a bit too far, in my opinion. For now, I think it's safe to say that compatibility is a part of the equation, so we'll talk more about how much it affects the person as we learn more. And since they keep referring to this place as the graveyard, I'll stop calling it temple and all those other words and start calling it the graveyard. Graveyard? Like a tomb? Yes, this is the witch's graveyard, where my soul is held prisoner. The sanctuary. Subaru grabs her by the shoulders and shakes her back and forth. Do you know where the sanctuary is? I don't have the experience to determine whether you're brave or just very bold. Don't make fun of me. So can I consider this to be the sanctuary? You're so mean. That's right, just as you wanted, the sanctuary is outside the ruins. So, what else would you like to... If I asked you, you'd let me back out, right? Sure. Hey, isn't there something you want to ask me? Sorry, but I'd rather meet with Amelia outside than talk to you. You're... You're kidding, right? I'm the Witch of Greed. Powerful people from around the world come to talk to me in search of my knowledge. So, relax, okay? We can just relax and talk. Not interested. I'll make time to come chat over tea with you later, okay? You're asking a dead woman, a witch at that, to agree to that as if it was the simplest thing. I've never had a tea party like this. A portal opens up behind Subaru. It's just a door in the light novel. If you're really going back, I'll just take my compensation first. Just so you know, I'm broke beyond compare. Compensation for the witch doesn't mean money. What I desire from you is a vow. You will tell no one what has transpired at the tea party. And since you're here, I'll send you away with a souvenir. I'll grant you the right to face the trial of the sanctuary. You may not understand now, but once you learn what it is, you will realize its worth. What feelings will you have towards me when that happens? The mere thought gives me such beautiful expectations. Subaru stares as she licks her fingers. You really are a witch, aren't you? That's right. I'm a very, very evil magic user. Using one finger, she pushes Subaru back, and he falls through the portal. Subaru doesn't have the same fear of the witches as everyone else in this world. But you would at least think that he could understand that they can be dangerous. He was freaking out when he first got there, and by the end, he's acting all nonchalant and acting like Echidna is just some normal girl. And I'm sure that won't come back to bite him in the ass. Subaru wakes up in the graveyard. He gets up and starts to walk towards the exit. I feel like someone said something to me. The payment that Echidna mentioned was that Subaru would forget about the tea party, a vow made with a magic binding, in case that wasn't obvious. He still remembers right before the party started, so he still remembers the voice that he heard. In the light novel, he remembers that Amelia isn't there in the graveyard, even though he doesn't remember how he knows that. It's pretty similar to his thoughts on the void dreams that he had whenever he was talking to Echidna earlier. Like he subconsciously remembers even when his memories are locked. As Subaru walks outside, he sees Otto passed out on the ground. Look at you, just waltzing out of there. You got some nerve, outsider. Is this like a Magmarin laughing when it's full of holes? Subaru gets lifted up and thrown. Patricia reacts immediately and swings the wagon around, creating a slightly safer landing spot for him. This is kind of where the web novel skips to. They go through the barrier, Amelia passes out, and they get attacked almost immediately. Also, Otto isn't knocked out here. You can see almost a few seconds after Subaru gets thrown, he's awake and watching what's happening. It's just funnier to say he was knocked out. Sorry, Otto. Subaru slowly gets up after the painful landing and quickly checks inside the wagon. Amelia sleeps on the couch. That's a nice ground dragon you got there. Patricia lets go of the wagon and charges the attacker. She bites down on his left side, but doesn't appear to do any damage. You're a good-looking girl, ain't ya? He grabs her neck. I'm not gonna hurt ya, just take a little nap. Lifting her entire body over his head, he slams her down on the ground, knocking her out. Better thank her for fighting so hard for you. I'm gonna throw you guys out of this forest half dead. Just alive enough to swear you won't tell a soul about this place. Wait, you know Frederica, right? Hearing the name, the attacker stopped in his tracks. Why the hell did I just hear that name come out of your nasty mouth? What do you think? Just think about it for a second. Thought about it. Don't know. I'll think about it after I bash her skull in. Yeah, it's because we know her too. At that, he leans in. I'm Garfield. If you guys know her, you must know that name, right? How the hell did you know I have anything to do with Frederica? Subaru looks at his blonde hair, green eyes, and sharp teeth. It was almost too obvious that those two are related. Garfield finally stands down. Remember how Frederica told them they needed to worry about Garfield? Yeah, that's because he can and would knock them the fuck out. Also, you'll notice that his last name is different from Frederica's, and that'll be explained later. In the light novel, Otto is still awake and not dazed at all when Subaru walks out. Basically, Garfield found them as soon as they crossed the barrier and forced them to go where Subaru was. He was able to track him using his smell. And just to clarify, it's not the witch's scent like what Rem and Beatrice can smell. It's just his normal scent. But since it's new to Garfield, he was able to track it pretty easy. So they get to the temple, Otto is still awake, and he yells at Subaru to let him know that Amelia is safe. And then Garfield goes over, throws him, Patricia catches him, and then gets suplexed. And then Otto gets taken out with a flick to the forehead. Subaru gives both Frederica and Roswell's names to try to calm him down. And that's when Garfield gives the thought about it, don't care line. And I feel like that makes a lot more sense with Roswell's name thrown in. But after that, he calms down. It's pretty much the same in the web novel, except that the whole carriage gets thrown, and then Subaru ends up carrying Amelia the rest of the time. Garfield actually stops for a second because of how pitiful Subaru is. Then he actually stops whenever Frederica is brought up, and Subaru stands up to defend Amelia. As soon as Otto and Patricia recover, they start heading off again. If you'd shown me that thing sooner, that would have done it. Gotta act on a ganglion before you think about it. Huh? Looking at that hair, I'm guessing that's the famous Amelia. The silver-haired half-devil that Roswell's helping out. She's a half-elf, don't you ever call her that again. Hey, look at that. Guess you can put some energy into your voice after all. Want to know how it feels to be a Bonzomazo being flung back and forth? Huh? Is there some sort of translation glitch happening between you and me? Just go ahead and get used to Garfield using random-ass idioms. Wait. This is how everyone else views Subaru. He just says random things using words that no one else understands. Garfield does know of Amelia, but she was knocked out when they passed the barrier, so she couldn't just stop him whenever he started to attack. In the novels, he does see her before this, but he doesn't make the connection that's who it is. In fact, in the light novel, this conversation happens before they leave. And then once they do leave, the conversation is more about his scent, which I've already mentioned. At that moment, Amelia wakes up. Realizing a new person is in the wagon, she jumps between him and Subaru. I'm not gonna do anything. I don't want Ram giving me hell later. This is Garfield. He's showing us the way to Sanctuary now. Ram and the villagers from Arlem are there, right? Don't want to believe me? That's your call. Ain't no turning back now, though. We're already past the barrier. Then we're in Sanctuary right now? Come on, give me a break. Weren't you asleep because you got close to the barrier? Come to think of it, when the stone glowed, so it was reacting to the barrier? In both the anime and the light novel, Garfield gives the crystal a death glare. But he's not called out on it in the anime. And even when Subaru points it out in the light novel, Garfield just says that it's nothing and they move on. But of course, it's going to come back up later. But why did only Amelia pass out? I got transported somewhere, but Otto... You know damn well why the barrier reacted to her and not you two. Because Sanctuary is a place where demi-humans with mixed blood live. We welcome you, Amelia, and your two escorts too. Roswell likes to go around calling it the Sanctuary, but ain't the kind of place that deserves such a nice name. Nothing around here but a hodgepodge of half-wits. It's just a dead-end testing ground. In the web novel back before they left, Garfield says that she's asleep because of the barrier, and that she'll wake up as soon as they get further away from it. So the barrier repels demi-humans. I know what you're thinking. If this place was made for demi-humans, why does it repel them? And that's because of what Garfield just said. This is a testing ground. It was made specifically to keep demi-humans in. But we'll learn more about that later. In the light novel, Garfield is very conceited. He says that he is the strongest man in the world. And I guess it's not really limited to the light novel. In the web novel, he says my amazing self instead of the word I. And I guess it's not really limited to the novels either. He's very conceited in the anime. Just a little less so than what he is in the novels. And it's very apparent that he has never met Reinhardt if he thinks he's the strongest man in the world. Also in the novels, Garfield calls this place the Witch of Greed's graveyard. And this gets Subaru worried that the other witches have their own cult groups or cult following. That luckily Otto confirms that the cult only follows the Witch of Envy, and there's no other witch cult that they need to worry about. In fact, bringing up the other witches in front of a witch cult member is a bad idea. It's said that that will piss them off very quickly. And if you remember, the city in Wallachia that got destroyed by the Greed Archbishop, that city was apparently selling a witch cult item. Probably a media that was owned by one of the witches. But even in the novel, that's just a guess. There's nothing that's been confirmed on what was happening. All of that is just rumor. My guess is that Regulus went there to get that media and then just killed everybody while he was there. His gospel probably told him to go get it. But again, that's all just my guess based on very little information. Otto knows about this rumor because he had family in the city at the time. Remember, his family are merchants, and if they're selling stuff related to the witch, I would imagine they also have a bunch of other high value things that would attract merchants. This happened when he was young, so he just heard stories from his family. And also, by how the story is described, I think Otto's family lives on the south end of Lagunica, close to the Valachian border. That would line up with the story that he told in the novels and with events that happened later on. It took you long enough. I haven't a clue where you were, Borisu, but I am disappointed by how long it took you to get here. Ah, but I suppose I was a fool to expect more of you. If you don't know where I've been, then follow that part to the end. She completely ignores him, straightens her posture, and bows. Amelia, I welcome you. Roswell is waiting inside. Garf, take the ground dragon in the carriage somewhere suitable. Is that any way to treat me? That's just how I like it, though. Yeah, Garfield has a bit of a thing for Ram, and I'm on his side for this one. In the web novel, Subaru just straight up asked Ram if Garfield loves her, but she's a bit preoccupied with someone else. Yo, Cabby, follow me. That's the worst name you've given me yet. Also, I have to be alone with you? I'll pick up what's left of you. Why am I being treated so roughly? What are you talking about? When I was unconscious, Amelia only stayed safe because you were there. I'm grateful. Oh, well, as long as you're appreciative. He's too easy. Come on, Otto. In the novels, this happened earlier. Like right after Garfield attacked them, Subaru then flatters him and all that. Subaru stares at Rem as he thinks about Rem. What? Oh, just wondering how you were doing. As you can see, I am as lovely and healthy as ever. The villagers of Arlam are all safe too. You can be at ease. I see. Yeah, that's a relief. Listen. Seeing him struggle, Amelia steps in. Ram, this really isn't the place to stand around and talk. Would you show us inside? Certainly. Of course, Subaru is still upset that everybody has forgotten Rim, especially Ram. He manages to hold it together here, but just barely. He is not doing well, and Amelia is just trying to help. Subaru, are you alright? I'm sorry for interrupting you, but... No, I get it. I just freaked out a little. For her to not even ask about Rem when all this is going on. I'm pathetic, huh? It's only natural to be scared. I'm never going to think that's pathetic. Let's go. We'll fix what happened to Rem, and everything else too. I gotta say, good job to Emilia. I think she's doing a decent job of being emotionally supportive, especially given the circumstances. And in the novels, they actually hold hands as they go inside. Unfortunately, this conversation doesn't happen in the web novel. Subaru struggles with the whole Rem thing, but he isn't as affected by it. Emilia is distracted by Sanctuary and how she is feeling, so it ends up turning into him comforting her. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like that's been the that's been what's happened throughout the entire series so far. So I liked the flipping where she is the one comforting him. So I mean, it's fine in the web novel. I just prefer the light novel and the anime version better. Okay, we are now in Sanctuary, or better named the Witch's Graveyard. And next time, Roswell will explain what the fuck has been going on. See ya.